Promise me you'll never go to the cabin." Those were the last firm words my husband ever said to me. He wasn't angry. He wasn't shouting. That made it worse. We had been married for 22 years, and in all that time, he almost never told me what to do. "Yes," he explained. He joked his way around things. But that night, standing in our kitchen with the dim light overhead casting shadows across his face, his voice was steady and sharp. "Never," he said again, his eyes searching mine. I laughed nervously and asked why. He shook his head and kissed my forehead with a tenderness that made my heart ache. "Just promise me." So I did. I promised because I loved him, because after 22 years together, trust was the foundation we built everything on. I promised without understanding, without knowing that this single moment would haunt me for months to come. 3 months later, he collapsed in the driveway while carrying groceries. One moment he was smiling at me, making a joke about forgetting the milk again. The next, he was on the ground, the grocery bags scattered around him, oranges rolling into the street. I screamed his name, called for help. Neighbors rushed over. The ambulance came with sirens wailing. The doctors said it was his heart. Rest. Silent. Final. There was nothing anyone could have done, they told me with sympathetic eyes and gentle voices. A massive cardiac arrest. He was gone before he hit the pavement. At 51, I became a widow. The funeral was a blur of black clothing, whispered condolences, and casseroles I couldn't eat. Friends and family surrounded me, but I felt utterly alone. And suddenly, in the quiet moments between visitors and phone calls, the promise felt heavy. It sat in my chest like a stone. 2 weeks after the funeral, I sat in a quiet office with beige walls and a clock that ticked too loudly. The lawyer was kind but professional, sliding documents across his polished desk. Life insurance, retirement accounts, a house deed. Everything was in order, he assured me. Then he paused. His expression shifted slightly, something careful entering his eyes. He slid a thin envelope toward me. "This was meant for you," he said quietly. Inside was a key. Cold, heavy in my palm. The metal was tarnished with age, and attached to it was a wooden tag carved with one word: North Pine. My chest tightened. My breath caught. "That's the cabin," I whispered. The lawyer nodded slowly. "Your husband purchased it 5 years ago. You're now the sole owner." I stared at him, confusion washing over me. "That's not possible." "He always said it was nothing," I continued, my voice rising slightly. "Just land. Empty land his father left him. He said it wasn't worth visiting, that there was barely a structure standing." The lawyer shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "There's more," he said carefully, choosing his words with precision. "He left specific instructions. You were not to be told about the cabin until after his passing. These were his explicit wishes, documented legally." My hand shook. The key felt heavier now, almost burning against my palm. Why would he hide this from me? What was he protecting me from? Or was he protecting something else? "And one more thing," the lawyer added, his voice dropping lower. "The land has become valuable. Quite valuable, actually." "How?" I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know the answer. "Mineral surveys. Rare earth deposits. Your husband commissioned the surveys 2 years ago." I laughed once, sharp and hollow. The sound echoed strangely in the quiet office. The cabin he forbade me from visiting. The place he hid from me for 5 years. The property he made me promise never to see. Now it was mine. Now I owned something I wasn't supposed to know existed. The lawyer continued talking about property values and mining rights, but his words became distant noise. I stared at the key in my hand, turning it over and over, feeling the rough edges of the carved wooden tag. North Pine. I had never heard him mention that name. Not once in 22 years of marriage. How many other secrets had he kept? How much of his life had existed in spaces I wasn't allowed to enter? The drive home felt surreal. Traffic lights changed colors. Other cars passed. The world continued as if nothing had changed, but everything had. That night, alone in our bedroom that felt too empty without him, I opened the second envelope the lawyer had given me. My name was written across the front in his careful handwriting, the letters precise and steady. Inside, on cream-colored paper, were his words. "My love, if you're reading this, then I broke my promise first. Sorry." Tears blurred the page. I had to stop, wipe my eyes, and start again. "The cabin isn't what you think. Never was. I made you promise because I wasn't ready to explain. I was a coward about many things, but especially about this. Now you're free. Free. What did that mean? There's something waiting for you there. A truth I couldn't face while alive. Please go. Just once. You deserve to understand." My heart pounded against my ribs. The promise was broken. By him. He had asked me never to go, and now he was asking me to do exactly that. 3 days later, I found myself driving 6 hours through pine forests and empty roads. I had told no one where I was going. My daughter called twice, but I let it go to voicemail. This felt like something I needed to do alone. The air changed as I crossed into the mountains. Colder. Sharper. The scent of pine filled the car even with the windows closed. The GPS led me down increasingly narrow roads until I turned onto a gravel drive marked only by a weathered wooden post. The gate to North Pine Cabin stood open. That alone made my skin prickle. Had someone been here recently? Was someone here now? The cabin came into view and I stopped the car, staring. This looked nothing like I expected. Fresh wood siding. Solar panels on the roof. New windows reflecting the afternoon sun. This wasn't an old hunting shack or abandoned family property. This was intentional. This was maintained. The key turned smoothly in the lock. As I stepped inside, the smell of cedar filled my lungs, clean and almost overwhelming. The interior was immaculate. Hardwood floors. Modern furniture. A kitchen that looked like it belonged in a home magazine. And then I saw the photos. Hundreds of them covering an entire wall. Pictures of me. Laughing at a birthday party from 10 years ago. Teaching at the community center. Painting in our backyard on a Sunday morning. Sleeping in our bed, early morning light across my face. Taken over decades. Carefully framed. Arranged chronologically. My life displayed like an exhibition. My knees buckled and I grabbed the back of a chair for support. "What were you doing?" I whispered to the empty room. This wasn't just remembrance. This was documentation. This was obsession. This was something I couldn't name. Then I heard a car outside. Tires on gravel. Doors slamming. I moved to the window and peered out carefully. 3 people stepped out of a dark SUV. Their movements confident and purposeful. All of them looked like my husband. Same eyes. Same jaw. Same way of standing with shoulders squared. His family. People he never talked about. People whose existence he had mentioned only once years ago, saying simply that they were no longer in his life and never would be. They walked toward the door like they owned it, their faces set and determined. Panic rose in my chest. I locked the door quickly, then the windows, checking each one with trembling hands. A knock followed, hard and insistent. "Open up," a man called. His voice carrying an edge of authority. "We need to talk. We know you're in there." I backed away from the door, my heart racing. This was why. This was what he was protecting me from. On the desk near the window sat a laptop, closed and waiting. A yellow sticky note was attached to the top. His handwriting again. Password. The day we met plus your maiden name. My breath caught. June 7th, 1995. Harrison. I typed carefully. 060795 Harrison. The screen lit up. A video player opened automatically. As if programmed to do so. My husband's face filled the screen, and I cried out loud. He looked tired but peaceful, sitting in this very room, probably at this very desk. "Hello, my heart," he said, and his voice wrapped around me like an embrace. "If you're here, then I didn't get more time. I'm sorry about that. I had so much more I wanted to say." The knocking at the door grew louder, more demanding. Someone rattled the doorknob. But I couldn't look away from the screen, from his face, from this last message he had left me. "I didn't tell you I was sick," he said softly, his eyes full of regret. "The doctors diagnosed my heart condition 3 years ago. They gave me 5 years, maybe. I made it to 3. I was scared and selfish. I didn't want you to spend our last years together watching me die." His words hit me like physical blows. 3 years. He had known for 3 years and never told me. I would have changed everything. I would have stopped working so much. We would have traveled. We would have. "I bought the cabin to protect you," he continued. "From them." He gestured vaguely, and I knew he meant the people currently trying to get inside. They hurt me growing up. They took what was mine and told me to be grateful for the scraps they left. When I escaped, I swore they would never touch anything I loved again. Outside, I heard voices conferring. More cars arriving. My isolation suddenly felt dangerous. My husband leaned forward in the video, his expression hardening. "They don't want the cabin. They want what's under it." The mineral surveys I commissioned revealed deposits worth millions. Rare earth elements used in electronics, batteries, medical equipment. A fortune buried beneath this land. He paused, taking a breath that seemed to pain him. "When I bought this property, I used a shell company. Different names. They never knew. But I knew that after I died, they would find out eventually. Property records are public. They would come looking." His next words were measured and deliberate. "They will lie to you. They will use guilt, talk about family and blood and duty. They will use fear, make threats, try to intimidate you. They will offer money, partnerships, compromises. Do not believe any of it." The door rattled again, harder now. Someone shouted, "We have a legal right to be here. This was family land." My husband smiled sadly on the screen. "They're probably there now, aren't they?" "Bottom drawer," he said, pointing downward. "Blue folder. Everything you need is there." I scrambled to the desk, yanking open the drawer. Inside was a blue legal folder, thick with documents. Deeds showing clear chain of ownership. Mineral surveys with official stamps. Court documents dismissing previous family claims. Legal opinions from 3 different law firms. Everything airtight. Everything documented. Everything prepared. He planned this. All of it. Every detail. This wasn't just about protecting property. This was about protecting me. I grabbed my phone and dialed 911. "I'm being harassed on my property," I said clearly. 3 individuals are trying to force entry into my home. I'm the legal owner and I want them removed. The dispatcher was professional and quick. "Officers are on their way. Stay inside and keep the doors locked." Through the window, I saw the visitors' confidence beginning to crack. They had heard me call the police. 20 minutes later, a patrol car pulled up. A uniformed officer stepped out, surveying the scene with practiced eyes. I opened the door with the folder in my hands, my shoulders back, my voice steady. "Good afternoon, officer. I'm the legal owner of this property. These individuals are trespassing and attempting to gain entry without permission." A woman who looked remarkably like my husband stepped forward. "We received a complaint that someone was illegally occupying family property. This land belonged to our father." "No," I said firmly, opening the folder. "This land was purchased legally by my late husband 5 years ago. Here are the deeds, all properly recorded and notarized." The officer took the documents, examining them carefully. Minutes passed in tense silence. I could see the visitors exchanging worried glances, their story beginning to unravel. "This property belongs to her," the officer said firmly, handing the documents back to me. "You need to leave now. If you return without permission, you'll be arrested for trespassing." They left, but slowly, with backward glances that promised this wasn't over. After they drove away, I locked the door and returned to the laptop. But first, I explored the cabin more thoroughly. In the bedroom, behind what appeared to be a decorative wooden panel, I found a seam. I pressed, and the panel swung open. Behind it were stairs leading down. I flipped a light switch and descended into a concrete room, cool and dry. The walls were lined with file cabinets, maps, and bulletin boards covered with photographs and connecting strings, like something from a detective's investigation. He called it insurance, according to a label on the first cabinet. Inside were files on each family member, their business dealings, their financial crimes, evidence of fraud, embezzlement, and extortion going back decades. My husband had documented everything, gathering ammunition for a war he hoped would never come. But he knew it would. He knew they would come for me, and he wanted me to be ready. I spent hours reading, my horror growing with each revelation. My phone rang, shattering the silence. My daughter's name flashed on the screen. I answered quickly. "Sweetheart." "Mom, something weird just happened." Her voice was tense, uncertain. "I got a call from someone claiming to be Dad's sister. She said there's a family property dispute and they need my help as his daughter. They offered me money to sign something." My stomach dropped like a stone. They were already moving to the next target, trying to divide us, to use my daughter's grief and confusion against us both. "Please," I said, my voice urgent. "Don't sign anything. Don't talk to them. Trust me. I'm handling this, and I'll explain everything soon." Silence stretched across the line, painful and heavy. Then, barely audible. "Okay." The word carried doubt, carried questions, carried the weight of not understanding. But it carried trust too, fragile as it was. I would have to earn keeping that trust. I would have to prove I deserved it. Back at the laptop, I played the next video. My husband looked directly into the camera with an intensity one rarely saw in life. "They aren't the only family," he said. "I never told you this part because I was ashamed. Ashamed of where I came from. Ashamed of what they did." He explained the hidden siblings. Children from different relationships, scattered across states, erased from family records when they became inconvenient. People who shared his blood but were denied existence, written out of wills, excluded from gatherings, treated as mistakes to be buried. "I found them," he continued. 5 of them over the years. We formed our own family, the rejected ones. They helped me build this case against the others. They helped me document everything. They're good people, people who deserved better. He smiled, and it was genuine this time. "I left them information on how to contact you. They know about you. They want to meet you, but only when you're ready. No pressure. No demands. Just an invitation to know the family I chose rather than the one I was born into." My breath caught. More family. But this time family he trusted. They returned 3 days later, but this time with lawyers. Expensive suits. Leather briefcases. Papers printed on heavy stock. They had upgraded their approach, trading intimidation for legal pressure. I let them talk. I sat at the table in the cabin and listened to their arguments. Claims about family land trusts. Assertions about improper purchase procedures. Implications of undue influence and mental incompetence. They spoke for 20 minutes, building their case with careful words. Then I showed them what they had missed. I spread out maps on the table, pointing to property lines they hadn't studied carefully enough. "You're focused on this land," I said. "But look here." I indicated the western boundary. "This section is actually separate, purchased under a different deed. This is where the real deposits are." Their faces fell. One lawyer grabbed the map, studying it frantically. They hadn't done their homework. They had assumed, and assumptions had made them careless. Over the next week, I brought in a second mining company to assess the property. A competitor to the one they had clearly already contacted. The 2 companies began negotiating for rights, driving prices up. Offers doubled, then tripled. The visitors' confidence evaporated as they realized they had no leverage. They needed my cooperation and I needed nothing from them. I watched them scramble, making calls, holding emergency meetings in their hotel. Voices raised in their rooms late at night. Sweat beaded on foreheads during tense meetings. They realized too late that my husband had trained me for this, had left me every tool I needed. "All we want is peace," one of them finally said, the woman who claimed to be my husband's sister. Her voice was tired, defeated. "Can we negotiate something fair?" Smiled. "So do I, peace on my terms." I gave them a sealed letter. My husband's final move, written years ago and held in the lawyer's safe. Their hands shook as they opened it. I watched their faces as they read. Inside were details about their crimes, documented with dates and evidence. Tax evasion, insurance fraud, falsified business records. Nothing violent, nothing that would destroy them completely, but enough to cause serious legal problems if reported. "He never wanted to use this," I said quietly. "He just wanted to be left alone. He wanted me to be left alone. Now you have a choice. Walk away peacefully and this stays sealed. Or continue fighting, and these documents go to the appropriate authorities." Secrets cracked open like eggs. Truth spilled across the table. The careful facades they maintained in their communities, their businesses, their churches, all of it suddenly vulnerable. They understood. The war was over before it truly began. They left the next morning without speaking to me again. Defeated. Suppose. Their lawyers packed up quickly, eager to distance themselves from clients who had lied about the strength of their case. I stood on the cabin porch and watched their cars disappear down the gravel drive. The silence that followed felt clean somehow, like air after a storm has passed. Weeks passed. The land remained mine. I negotiated careful leases with the mining companies, ensuring environmental protections and community benefits. The money that came in was more than I would ever need. My daughter visited, and we sat together in the cabin. I showed her the videos, all of them. We watched her father explain his choices, his fears, his hopes. We cried together, mourning not just his death but the years we had lost to his secrets. We laughed too, at memories the videos sparked. We healed slowly in that space he had built. The cabin had one more secret. In the back room, behind another hidden panel, was a complete art studio. Paints organized by color, brushes in every size, canvases stretched and waiting, natural light flooding through skylights I hadn't noticed from outside. Another note in his handwriting. "For when you remember who you were before you became who you had to be." I hadn't painted seriously in 15 years. Life had gotten busy. Work demanded time. The house needed attention. My art had become something I did occasionally. Hobby sketches while watching television. "I never forgot who you were," his video said when I played the next file. "You're an artist. You gave that up for practical things, for security, for me. Now you don't have to choose anymore. Paint. Create. Be who you were meant to be." Tears streamed down my face, but I was smiling. I painted every morning. The cabin became home, not a secret but a sanctuary. I moved my things from our old house, keeping what mattered and selling what didn't. My daughter helped me pack, and we talked more honestly than we had in years. About her father, about grief, about the shape of our new life. The hidden siblings reached out one by one. Coffee meetings, phone calls, cautious at first, then warmer. They shared stories about my husband I had never heard, pieces of him from before I knew him. We formed our own small family, bonded not by the past but by choosing each other in the present. They became aunts and uncles to my daughter, people who understood loss and rebuilding. The cabin filled with life, laughter, meals shared around the table, arguments about politics and art, the ordinary precious moments that make a family real. The mineral lease money funded scholarships at the local community college, art programs for underprivileged kids, environmental protection for the surrounding forest. I established a foundation in my husband's name, but for the name he had chosen for himself, not the one his family had given him. The name he used when he wanted to be free. Protected land spread around the cabin, ensuring that no matter what happened with mining operations, this space would remain wild. Future generations would walk these trails. Children would catch frogs in the stream. Deer would graze in the meadows at dawn. Not greed but purpose. That's what he had wanted. That's what I built. The hidden room became an archive, documenting not just his family's crimes but his chosen family's triumphs. Photos of scholarship recipients, letters from grateful parents, plans for community programs, evidence that healing was possible, that the cycle could break. On the anniversary of his death, I played the final video. He looked directly at the camera and I felt like he could see me. "If you're still here," he said, "then you're stronger than you ever knew. Stronger than I gave you credit for, probably. I'm sorry for that too. I was always trying to protect you, but maybe you never needed protecting. Maybe you needed information. Maybe you needed trust." He smiled, that crooked smile I fell in love with 23 years ago. "Live," he said simply. "Don't just survive. Don't just manage. Don't just get through. Live fully. Love boldly. Create without fear. That's what I want for you. That's what I always wanted." The video ended. I sat in silence, in the cabin that was no longer forbidden, in the life he had built for me to discover. Kept his secret. Then I transformed it. The cabin was never a place I was banned from. It was a place I wasn't ready for yet. It was waiting. And now so was I. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to my channel and comment below where you're listening from. Your support helps me bring more stories like this to life.